3 horror stories of the hidden darkness of Dubai's wealth. Story 1. Sinister silence of the construction worker. I arrived in Dubai with dreams of making a better life for my family back home, but the reality was a living nightmare. The gleaming towers of the city were built on the backs of thousands of exploited laborers, trapped in a cycle of debt and despair. My passport was confiscated upon arrival, a common tactic to ensure we couldn't escape. We lived in cramped, squalid conditions, with barely enough space to lie down at night. The heat was unbearable, often reaching over 50 degrees Celsius, but we were forced to work long hours without adequate breaks. Water was scarce, and we were constantly dehydrated and exhausted, teetering on the brink of collapse. Our wages were withheld for months, leaving us penniless and powerless. Many of my colleagues fell ill from the harsh conditions, but medical care was a distant dream. The foremen were ruthless, punishing any sign of disobedience with beatings or worse. We were constantly monitored, and any attempt to contact the outside world was swiftly thwarted. Towering cranes and scaffolding were death traps, with safety protocols being mere formalities. I witnessed several tragic accidents, with bodies quietly removed and families never informed. The screams of those injured or dying haunted the night, but no one dared to speak out. Our voices were silenced by the fear of retribution. The city's authorities turned a blind eye. We were invisible, mere cogs in the relentless machinery of Dubai's expansion. The constant threat of deportation hung over us, a weapon to keep us in line. Hope was a distant memory, replaced by a numbing acceptance of our fate. The days blended into a monotonous blur of suffering, with no end in sight. Even the rare moments of rest were tainted by the knowledge of what awaited us the next day. The rich and powerful lived in a different world, oblivious or indifferent to our plight. The glittering skyline was a cruel mockery of our shattered dreams. I often wondered if anyone outside this gilded cage knew or cared about our suffering. The silence around our plight was deafening, a conspiracy of indifference. I clung to memories of home, a fragile lifeline in the darkness. But even those memories began to fade, replaced by the grim reality of our existence. Escape was a fantasy, with every attempt ending in capture or death. The city's beauty was a facade, hiding a heart of darkness. I realized that we were trapped, not just by physical barriers, but by a system designed to exploit and discard us. The true cost of Dubai's wealth was paid in blood, sweat, and tears, a hidden sacrifice for the world to marvel at its splendor. I wondered if the world would ever hear our cries, or if we were doomed to remain shadows in the city of light. What do you think happens to those who try to escape? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Story 2. A sinister web of social media influence. As an influencer, I was lured to Dubai by promises of luxury and endless opportunities to grow my brand. The initial allure was undeniable, with extravagant events and high-end collaborations. But beneath the glamorous surface, I began to notice the cracks in this opulent facade. The influencers who thrived here played by a different set of rules, often compromising their values for fame. There was a constant pressure to present a perfect life, masking any struggles or hardships. I felt like I was living a double life, one for the camera and another in the shadows. The social circles were cutthroat, with friendships formed and broken based on social media metrics. The luxurious gifts and brand deals came with strings attached, often demanding unethical promotions. Many influencers resorted to illegal means to maintain their lavish lifestyle, risking everything for a few more likes. The competition was fierce, with everyone vying for a piece of the spotlight, no matter the cost. I found myself entangled in a web of deceit, where truth was a casualty in the pursuit of influence. Pressure to conform to unrealistic beauty standards led many down a dark path of dangerous procedures and substances. Behind the perfect posts were stories of debt, addiction, and mental health struggles. The city's authorities turned a blind eye to the rampant exploitation within the influencer community. I realized that my freedom was an illusion, as contracts and obligations bound me to a toxic cycle. Constant need for validation and approval became a relentless burden, eroding my sense of self. The lavish parties and events were hollow, filled with people wearing masks of happiness. I witnessed friends spiraling into despair, their cries for help drowned out by the noise of social media. The pressure to maintain a facade of perfection led to a pervasive sense of isolation. I felt trapped in a gilded cage, with every escape attempt thwarted by the lure of fame and fortune. The relentless pursuit of followers and likes consumed my every waking moment. The glamorous lifestyle came at the cost of my privacy and peace of mind. I found myself questioning the very foundations of my identity and purpose. The realization that I was a pawn in a larger game of manipulation was chilling. City's beauty was a stark contrast to the darkness that lurked within its influencer community. I watched as others around me fell victim to the seductive allure of instant fame, only to be discarded when they were no longer useful. The stories of influencers who had lost everything haunted me, a grim reminder of the precarious nature of this world. The lines between reality and fiction blurred, leaving me in a state of constant confusion and anxiety. The sinister truth was that we were all part of a carefully curated illusion, designed to exploit and profit from our desires. Story 3. The chilling truth of domestic workers. I came to Dubai with the hope of providing a better future for my children, but the reality was a nightmare beyond imagination. As a domestic worker, I was at the mercy of my employers, who saw me as nothing more than a disposable commodity. My passport was taken away upon arrival, trapping me in a foreign land with no means of escape. The work hours were grueling, often extending late into the night with no time for rest. I was given minimal food, just enough to keep me going, but never enough to feel satiated. The living conditions were deplorable, with no privacy and barely enough space to lie down. Any mistake, no matter how minor, was met with harsh punishment and verbal abuse. The constant fear of physical violence was a shadow that loomed over me every day. I witnessed others being beaten, their cries for mercy falling on deaf ears. The isolation was crushing, with no means of contacting my family or seeking help. My employers monitored my every move, ensuring that I remained under their control. The promises of fair wages and humane treatment were nothing but lies to lure us here. I often wondered if anyone outside this gilded cage knew or cared about our suffering. The city's beauty was a cruel mockery of our shattered dreams and broken spirits. The laws that were supposed to protect us were rarely enforced, leaving us vulnerable and powerless. Many of my colleagues fell ill from the harsh conditions, but medical care was a distant dream. Constant threat of deportation hung over us, a weapon to keep us in line. Hope was a distant memory, replaced by a numbing acceptance of our fate. Days blended into a monotonous blur of suffering with no end in sight. Even the rare moments of rest were tainted by the knowledge of what awaited us the next day. The rich and powerful lived in a different world, oblivious or indifferent to our plight. The glittering skyline was a cruel mockery of our shattered dreams. I often wondered if anyone outside this gilded cage knew or cared about our suffering. The silence around our plight was deafening, conspiracy of indifference. I clung to memories of home, fragile lifeline in the darkness. But even those memories began to fade, replaced by the grim reality of our existence. Escape was a fantasy, with every attempt ending in capture or death. The city's beauty was a facade, hiding a heart of darkness. I realized that we were trapped, not just by physical barriers, but by a system designed to exploit and discard us. The true cost of Dubai's wealth was paid in blood, sweat, and tears, a hidden sacrifice for the world to marvel at its splendor. What would you do if you found yourself in such a terrifying situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. These stories are a stark reminder that beneath the surface of Dubai's wealth and beauty lies a hidden darkness. What are your thoughts on these harrowing tales? Leave a comment below.